So I'm sitting across from this little boy named Thomas. Back behind him is his occupational therapist and his speech therapist. And sitting back behind me is Thomas's dad. So I launch into my very first trick, and I show him this trick. And Allie, I get nothing. Like, he doesn't laugh, he doesn't smile, he doesn't go, wow, nothing. I get no response out of this child. The next thing I know is he's just looking at me, and he slowly leans into me, like coming some close, until his nose is also almost just touching my nose. And he kind of turns his head, and he sits back down again. And I'm like, what was that?
Yeah.
So I reach down for my next trick, and he goes, wait, can you teach me that? It's like, yes. So I gave him this piece of rope, and he goes, where do I put my hands? How do I cross my arms? And what it is you make a knot magically appear in the center of this rope. Mm-hmm. So he was asking me all these questions about, where do I put my hands? How do I cross my arms? What do I do next? And then he was successful, and the knot kind of appeared there, and he just started to laugh. And he untied the knot, and he did the trick again. And then we had him make the knot appear in all these different places on the rope. And he was just having a blast. So then I showed him the next trick. And again, all the questions came out. Where do I put the paper clips? How do I fold the dollar bill? What am I going to do next? And we worked together for about 20 minutes. And at the end, and he did such a great, just an amazing job. At the end, he stood up and he kind of very awkwardly slapped me a high five and walked out of the room with his occupational therapist. And I'm sitting in that space trying to understand what just happened. Because it was my first experience with a kid. And you know how you kind of get in that world and everything around you is silenced.
Yes.
That's where I was. And then as I started to okay, I need to figure this out, and started to kind of be more aware of what was happening around me, I could hear this little boy's dad behind me, and he was crying. And I stood up, and as I turned around, his dad just grabbed me, and he hugged me, and he said, that's the first time I've ever heard my son speak.
Oh, wow. That is so
It was a really, it was just a really profound moment for me, because I didn't understand what that was. It was the first time I heard the word autism. And it was the first time I heard the words selectively mute. I had an opportunity to talk with his speech therapist for a little bit, and she said, I've been working with Thomas for about 3 years, and I've heard him say words, but I've never heard him say sentences.